is always changing, which means we are always changing, which means if you are not growth ready, then what are you doing?
Hello there, it's me, Steve Meller, and welcome in to Growth Ready, the podcast that allows high performers to reveal the reality behind what it means to ready yourself for growth, the personal and professional challenges along the growth journey, while also allowing the high performance executive coach in me to satisfy his curiosity toward what drives optimal performance. On this episode, we welcome in the joyful strategist, Jennifer Gomez. And as a strategic leadership coach and connection expert, Jennifer believes that by anchoring joy throughout our lives, over time, we will ready ourselves for these bursts of success that will lead to sustained growth. And welcome back into the most recent installment of the Growth Ready podcast. So excited to be welcoming in a fellow Baton Rouge-based guest today, in that of Jennifer Gomez. And Jennifer, before we go any further, you're going to get asked the question that everybody gets asked as we get started here. What does it mean to you to be growth ready?
Growth is a word that when it comes to my mind, I think of forward momentum. I think of forward motion. I think of growing bigger. But right before I came onto this podcast, I had a revelation that growth actually is not moving forward, but actually reflecting backward. That we cannot grow tall, we cannot grow big unless we're willing to grow deep, unless we're willing to go backward to see what we've not only accomplished, but who we are. And for a very long time, I didn't do that. I was so focused on forward. I was so focused on bigger, focused on exposure or money or status or title. And all of that is really wonderful. Don't get me wrong. I was just posting about how I want to go travel internationally again. And to be able to do that, what do you need? You need money, right? So growth monetarily is very important, but you can't even get to those heights or even appreciate those heights unless you understand and are completely grounded in who you are and where you've come from. And so I looking back on my upbringing, on my career, on all of it, I had to realize that I wasn't just who I am today, but I'm who I have grown to be. So when you ask me, what does it mean to be growth ready? I think that's a bigger, deeper question than we even can conceptualize, because what does growth truly mean, right? Growth, does that mean monetarily? Does that mean in your career? Does that mean, really, to me, it means we have to grow deep to grow tall. We have to go backward and say, okay, what did propel me to want that title or want more money or want more status, or what real impact am I trying to make on the world? What real purpose is driving me? Because all of those other things, they're going to come whenever you're driven through your purpose, whenever you're driven to make a difference in the world, whenever you're driven to be of service. So really, being growth ready, you have to have a deep connection with yourself, with your purpose, and what you're truly meant to do on this earth, because all of that status, money, impact, all of that will come if you're truly aligned with yourself.
I love it. And you know what? My favorite thing about this question is that it continues to solicit a completely different answer every single time. Sometimes people answer it so quickly, 15, 20 seconds, just like, this is what it means to me. Boom, so clear. And what I love already about your response is just the introspective approach that you took to it. It's to acknowledge that at certain points of our life, it can mean one thing and at another point, and literally in a day, right? Like here you are saying that coming into this interview, you were thinking this way, and then you sort of reflected a little bit, and it makes you immediately shift a little bit more inwardly, deeper, going back a little bit retrospectively. And so just to be able to say that growth is ever evolving, but at the heart of it, it's taking that time to find ways to define it, find ways to look inward and say, does it mean enough to me to take the time to define it, to do that work, to go backwards a little bit? And as I was joking with you off air before we got recorded, that's the beautiful thing about our audience, is it's a warm audience. They're ready to do some of this retrospective and introspective work, Jen. Like they want to look inwardly and things like that. And I think this is a great place for us to start. So I would love just to learn, maybe talk to us through a little bit of the work that you're doing now today, and maybe help us understand a little bit how you yourself are applying this sort of approach in that work when you think about that desire to look inwardly, to go a little deeper.
I love this question because most people don't want to go deep. They don't want to look intrinsically. They don't want to look at their past. What do they want? They want money and speed. They want results. Most people, heck, I do. I want results, right? Everybody wants results. But 9 times out of 10, my clients are blocked from getting those results because of something internally that's going on within them. So we start there. Where is the blockage? I've coined my title as the joyful strategist. I really love leaning into what truly brings you joy in your work, in your career, whether you are an executive leader, you want executive leadership, or maybe you're an entrepreneur. Why aren't you feeling that flow anymore? What is hindering you from getting the results that you're looking for, right? So my clients are anywhere from a young leader who wants to go for a VP role that isn't quite sure how to get there, so we're mapping out her trajectory and working on executive leadership tactics there, to I have a ton of entrepreneurial clients who actually want to have more cash flow into their businesses. So we're shifting all of their offers. We're really focusing on higher value and less fluff, and really getting their clients the results that they're looking for. Again, people don't want to talk about woo-woo. Oh, let's go really deep. Let's do some breath work. Even though it's all very, very important, and I will breath work on my clients all day long. But what they really want is they want results quick, right? They want results fast. And so what I do is when I first meet with a client, and it's kind of different depending on where they're at. But for instance, I have a meeting on Wednesday where we're doing a strategic planning meeting for her business. And we're going to get her, the goal is from 0 to multi-6 figures within her first year. Because the economy is not getting any better, but consumers are different. And so that's really where we focus. We say, where are we stuck? How can we get there? Now, what happens, Steve, whenever we talk these big, big goals, these big, big dreams, right? We get scared. GrowthReady is fear. There's so much fear in growth. So we spend a lot of time there. And I encourage my clients. I say, are you ready to commit? And are you ready to get really uncomfortable? Yep. Because on the other side of that is your definition of success. On the other side of that is your definition of growth. But if you can't break through those internal barriers, that's why it's so important to go deep.
Yeah, absolutely. And so much at the heart of that insight is getting people in that right headspace to begin with before we start doing the work. So often, again, in this busy world, we just, hey, is there a task that I can do? Is there a course that I can take, or whatever it is? And it's like, hey, it's like, prescribe me, please. Give me a prescription that's going to help me get from A to B as quickly as I possibly can. And if we just take that moment just to do a bit more work, get deep, get clear on the definition, and then further still get to the heart of the why behind the growth, then suddenly now the work that we probably will do will be more reflective of the growth that we actually want to see. And I'm really hearing that in your response is like, what does it look like to take the time to get a little bit clearer around what I want, why I want it, and then you can start to have better conversations about what you want to do about it. What are you willing to do? And to your point, there you are asking your clients, like, hey, Are you ready to get uncomfortable? Are you ready to go places that otherwise you may not have gone had you not decided to invest in this kind of work, right?
Yes, because whoever hires me or anyone that is ready to invest in themselves, you are not going to see the results unless you're willing to do the work.
Mm-hmm.
Right? If you invest in a gym and you don't go to the gym 7 times a week, you're not going to see the results that you're wanting.
Right.
And so oftentimes what happens, I think it's in online courses in particular, I think it's something like only 30% of people that buy an online course actually finishes it. And
Oof.
then what happens? They get
Right.
upset. Sorry if you're creating an online course, Steve. Sorry if that was a heavy metric to throw at
No,
you.
not yet. Not yet, at least. But I'm thinking about it. I'm thinking about not necessarily doing it now, but we'll see. We'll see.
Yeah, well,
Yeah.
I mean, and then what happens is the person who's taking the course feels like they just wasted their money. But
Sure.
let's really unpack this here. Like, what happened? They didn't stay the course.
Mm-hmm.
They didn't get the result because they didn't stay consistent and actually commit to what they signed up for.
Right.
So that's another way where we have to really look in the mirror and take a time audit and say, what am I focusing my time on? What am I doing? Where am I doing revenue generating activity, or am I scrolling on Instagram for inspiration?
Yeah. Tell me a little bit more now about your journey, because I really want to. I'm always fascinated because the audience have probably they picked up my journey as we've gone through the 200. You're probably right around 250 episodes now, so people have got a good idea of Steve at this point, and I would love for them just to maybe better understand how a person gets to this point that you're at right now. So it's one thing to have the expertise. But as I know, just from doing my research about you, we have already discovered that we've got about 50 people in common that we know too. I already know that this is a way of you. This is a way of being for you. This isn't just something that you're teaching and selling to people. And so I'm just curious. Walk us all through that journey of how you arrive at where you are today, so adamant and so disciplined around the work that you're obviously doing.
Oh, okay. How much time do we have? In a nutshell, okay.
In a nutshell.
I will say this goes back to what I was saying at the very beginning is how did we get to where we are? How did we become the person we are today? We have to look backwards to see what we've endured in our life that makes us who we are today. What I have found out is that the top entrepreneurs actually have severe childhood trauma because we are so driven to make something of ourselves, right?
Yeah.
So I wouldn't say I had severe childhood trauma, but I did have parents that divorced very young. My father wasn't in the picture very often. My mother was struggling to take care of 2 children. And by the time I was 17, I was completely on my own. I mean, I had no parental assistance, I was living with a best friend at the time. I mean, it was a really rough, rocky part of my life. But looking back on that built the resilience, the drive, the determination. The quote that I say so often is that there is no other option. That is conviction. When you have that feeling in your gut, like I cannot give up because there is no other option.
Yeah.
That's the drive that you need to be able to move forward. So I actually had a teacher. I love telling this story. I had a teacher in high school that she saw that I was just in a very, very rough place. And she drove me to Northwestern State University, Forkum Demons, up in northern Louisiana. And I had a love for the stage. I had a love for acting since I was probably in 3rd grade. And so I auditioned at this school, knowing no one, having no money, having no parentals. I was completely on my own. I auditioned, and this teacher helped me get a full ride to go to school at Northwestern. So I finished school there. I did a few different theater regional performances throughout the years. Ended up meeting my now husband there, and we moved out to LA together. We got married in 2012, and in 2013, right around the corner, we moved back to Baton Rouge, and we have been here ever since. But when I came to Baton Rouge, again, knowing no one, did not have anything except for Mark and some of his family. I had that drive of determination again. And within about a year, I was like, you know what? this city is small enough to where I can really make an impact. I don't know how I'm going to do it, but there's no other option. And so what I did was I started reaching out to, there's a prestigious award here in town called the 40 Under 40 Award.
Yep.
And once I heard about that about a year or two in, I just started connecting with people. Like, can we go have coffee? Can we go do this? I was just ruthless. I was like, let's meet. I want to make an impact in this city. Through that, my network grew. And then I was working at LSU, and then I worked for the Hilton downtown for a little while. And while I was there, while also growing that network, I was called by the chief of staff for the current governor of Louisiana. And he said, your name has come up to work for the First Lady. And I just about fell out my chair because in that moment, talking about Growth Ready, it was like the long game, right? It was like those 5 years that I had met and sat on boards and done all this networking. We oftentimes, I was just writing about this earlier, we want those quick wins without thinking about the long game win that we're going to be getting. Right. So if you're listening right now, the networking you're doing, it's going to pan out, I promise. Yep. But it finally did. And so from there, I was able to work with the governor and his wife for 6 out of the 8 years that they were in office. Wow. And from there, just this past January, actually, was when his term ended, and I found myself without a job. And I said, at the same time that I was working with the governor and his wife, I also was running a network marketing business called Beauty Counter. And so I had grown that business. I had a great team. I was in the top 2% of the company. So I mean, think about that insanity, Steve. Like I'm working for an executive office. I'm running a top 2%. Crazy, amazing business. But that filled my cup, like the coaching, the consulting, the driving impact, and then also doing something that was so admirable, working with the governor and first lady. So when that went away, Beauty Counter actually foreclosed earlier this year as well. And so I found myself earlier this year, I was a mess. I was sobbing. I just was like, what am I going to do? And so that is when I had to really go deep and say, okay, I was able to establish myself within the community. I was able to establish myself within this entrepreneurial venture, although under an umbrella. I said, what if I just took the leap? This is the opportunity. And so Jen Gomez LLC was born. I have hosted 2 incredible retreats for women. One was in January, one was in June. They both sold out. It was amazing. And I have a full deck of clients that I work with one-on-one. And I also have done a leadership cohort as well. It just ended. It was a 12-week certification program that just ended. So I have just been speeding through this year, embracing every minute of it, and really feeling like I stepped into my purpose, but it would not have been, I don't know that I would have taken the leap. And I've seen this over and over again if I did not have the rug ripped out from underneath me.
Right.
And I said, okay, it's all or nothing. And so I invested in a business coach when I had nothing. And I said, this is it. Let's go. And I haven't looked back since.
Gosh, I love it. And we're not even a year in. This is beautiful. I'm getting you primed, like right as you get going here. This is beautiful. I love it. And I think for me, so many just, I appreciate that story because there's immediately just a couple of things that jump out. One, we have something in common is that we see the potential in this city. We really do. I mean, and not many people do. I have to say it. Like a lot of people have a lot of bad things to say about Louisiana, Baton Rouge, all this kind of stuff. It's going to take folks like you and I continuing to see the potential, see the good, see the possibilities in businesses and in humans, men, women, whatever you want to say. As long as we keep seeing that potential, good things will keep happening here. But just to really get into the heart of your story there, I love how you acknowledge that having that rug pulled from underneath us so often is that catalyst for an action or the kind of response that we've always been looking for from ourselves. But something I heard there was that when that rug got pulled, when you landed on the ground again, you recognized the foundation that you built for yourself. Like you had a wonderful foundation, and you were so encouraging as you were telling that story to anybody listening. And if you weren't picking up on it, I'm going to reiterate it right now, is that the fact is all these little things that you're doing, every hand that you shake, every room you walk into is yet another opportunity to actually build that foundation for the if and when moment. If a rug were to get pulled from you, or if you were in a position that, hey, I want something new and I don't know what it is, then just look under your feet. Like your feet have a foundation that you're stood on right now. And if you don't feel great about that foundation in this moment, as you hear Jen's story, start there. Start investing in that foundation before you even start investing in what I want and where I want to get to. And this brings us beautifully back around to your first insight of like, hey, how do we get deep? How do we look inwardly and ask these difficult questions? And that's something that came through, Jen, in that story. Like, it sounds like you are constantly asking deep questions, but at the same time, asking the hard questions, entertaining the answers too, letting the answers to those questions actually drive your actions as well.
Yes, absolutely. And one thing I like to say to my clients is personal brand. You may not be an entrepreneur, but take a really good look at your personal brand. Who is in your network? If you want to be a multi-million dollar business owner, fantastic. Surround yourself with multi-million dollar business owners. You're not sure how to get there, figure it out. You feel like the most insecure person in the room, put your shoulders back. You are meant to be there. Period. They were once just like you, learning from people on how to grow. So whether you don't feel I'm gonna sidestep on here.
Yeah.
Growth ready. Also, sometimes you have to borrow others' confidence in you until you
Love
can
it.
build that confidence in yourself.
Mm-hmm.
Find an alter ego. And if you have that dream in your belly, if you know that it's something that you want to go do, you can, but you got to get over yourself first.
That's
Go
right.
get after it.
It's true. It's true. And we all have these limiting beliefs. We all have these things within us that are pulling us away when we want to be walking toward. And so much of what you're emphasizing here is the willingness to do the work around it. And I want to move to this word joy now. Whenever someone has a word or a key buzzword that's associated with them, I immediately just say, okay, circle it, double underline it. Let's talk about that. Because when you talk about joy, firstly, I'm going to do what I like to do from a coaching standpoint. I want to make sure that we are understanding joy the way that you may be presenting and emphasizing joy. So in your own words, can you frame what you mean by joy?
Yes, absolutely. Joy is a strategy, first of all. Joy is not something that happens. Sometimes it does. Sometimes we have to strategize it to happen. But we were each put on this earth to feel joyful. We were each put on this earth to make an impact. Have you ever done work with the homeless or service-based work? It feels good, right? You feel fulfilled. You feel impactful. That is joy. Leading with transformation, not just transaction. Leading with impact in your team, a bigger mission. Building leaders within your team or within your organization. Understanding that the joy maybe isn't something that you are creating within yourself, but you're creating in others. Sometimes we feel so... Have you ever read The Gap and the Gain?
Oh, yeah. Yeah.
Okay. So sometimes we get stuck in the gap.
Yeah.
And to pull ourselves back into the gain, we have to tap into what I call joy anchors. Find throughout your day where you felt a little burst of success, whether it's in someone else or in yourself. How can you get yourself back into the gain so you can get back into momentum so that you can actually achieve those results? I did not get to where I was in my network marketing business by staying in the gap. I leaned into things that brought me joy and that brought my team joy. It was not about the product, it was about the transformation. So this joyful strategy, this joyful methodology, I mean, you're seeing it in some pretty big companies now, where it's leaders that are not drilling into their staff, or it's not entrepreneurs that are just foaming at the mouth for sales. It's about impact, it's about influence, right?
Yeah.
So tapping into that secure foundation, we were talking about that before, secure foundation, authentic even though some people don't like the word authenticity because it's very difficult, right? It's difficult to be your authentic self if you're required to be a mold of who you are. So authenticity is a whole nother topic for a whole
Right.
nother episode.
Right.
But how can you promote joy and impact within your organization so that you can get back into momentum and get back into the results that you want to see within your business and within your team?
Yeah.
When I worked for the governor, was the first time that I'd actually realized that I had a methodology, because I walked into a team of men that were twice my age, and they were all incarcerated.
Wow.
Yes. So talk about heavy. It was very, very heavy. And I had to remind them that life was bigger than what they knew to be true.
Yeah.
And that when you have someone that believes in you, when you have someone that believes in your future, that when you have somebody that says, I see your strengths, I see that you're not working in this position, let's just move you over here, instead of just firing you on the spot.
Yeah.
It was really incredible to see this mentorship and this methodology through these men who had no one ever take time to really develop them as leaders.
Yeah.
And so now they're out in society and they're able to bring an impact through that, which is pretty neat.
Yeah, it's more than pretty neat. It's pretty awesome. It's pretty awesome, and I think the something that's so apparent in the stories there that is coming through is how clear you seem on what you know is good for other people. You know, you're very clear on, like, we need joy. We just need joy. Like, what if? Stop trying to tell yourself you don't need joy. You know, you can be the most you can be the most skeptical, whatever you are. That's totally fine. You can be still that, but
Yes.
you need joy. If you don't have joy, what are you doing on this planet? To your point,
Yes.
it's like we were put here for joy, to experience joy, and you know what might some sort of audit around where joy exists, if it does, in your life right now look like? Because if we don't do that work at some point, sadly, we are always going to be, we're not going to have it. You know, we're going to be completely aloof and never actually experience joy.
And you can see someone that has that connection within themselves, and you can see when someone doesn't.
Yeah.
And it's those people that don't that I honestly love to be around the most, because you are the average of the 5 people you're around the most. So I'm like, okay, maybe, just maybe, if I'm around them enough, they'll get a little bit of a joy anchor from me.
Yeah.
And then they'll see how much lighter it is when you just relax. I mean, I get it. I get all of it. I get the political climate. I get the economy. I get it all. What is in your control? What is out of your control? What is in your control is your emotions, the way that you talk to yourself, the way that you talk to others. So why not start there? Instead of just constantly just being in this negative, and then that's spewing through your business, it's spewing through all your copy, it's spewing through your marketing. Whether you believe it or not, it is.
Yep.
You have to find that connection. You have to find the joy, even if it's just a molecular little tiny little joy anchor. You have to hold on to that, expand that bigger, and run through the wall with that. And that is, again, when you start to see the momentum and the results that you're looking for. So get out of that gap and into that gain and into momentum by anchoring into joy.
Yeah, and something I always appreciate when a guest shares this type of insight is that you're not saying that this is something that you have to have all figured out or be all-encompassing joy. You said it yourself there, it can be just the teeniest, tiniest pin-size amount of joy. There's something in your life that now that you've actually taken the time to identify how you can acquire joy and create one of those anchors, suddenly now it's like, okay, whenever there's an opportunity in my day that I could use one of those anchors, going to do it. I'm not only going to do it, but I'm going to, like you said, I'm going to run through the wall with it. I'm going to absolutely optimize and maximize this opportunity for me to experience and lean into my joy. Because as you're saying, it's like the benefits are endless, because I have to assume every time you find one anchor and the more you emphasize it, chances are the likelihood of you finding another one is exponentially increased because of that.
Absolutely. And people will say, I can't find joy. I can't feel joy. I can't. So your title is high performance coach, right?
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Especially with people that are high performers. What do? We are really negative on ourselves.
Mm-hmm.
I didn't hit this metric. I didn't do this. I didn't do that. We get in our heads. We start just overthinking. We have to take a moment to say, okay, you know what? I got to shake all this off. I got to put on my favorite jam song, and I've got to neurologically redirect my thoughts so that I can take that strategic action, so I can actually win the race.
Mm-hmm.
So I can actually go and make $1 million in my business. So I can actually go and leave the job that I hate and start my own business as a bakery. Whatever it is. Right?
Whatever it is.
The lack of joy is holding you back.
Yeah.
Fear. I will say one thing about fear. I talk a lot about fear too. Fear, and somebody may have said this already on your show, but fear are stories that we tell ourselves about the future. Mm-hmm. They are not factual. So if you're listening right now and you're scared of something, I want you to really think about that, because it's most likely a story you're telling yourself about something that has not even happened yet. So look at what's factual, look at what's fake, look at what you can control, look at what you can't control. Set your goals and run after them, because life is too short.
Yeah, and that's a message that we somehow manage to repeat at least every other episode on this show, is that we're not here, we're not naive to the fact that we've got forever and ever to make the most of this thing we call life, that we are all going to lose that battle against time, and we're going to have to find a way to optimize it while we're here. And I think hearing you speak through so much of what you're saying comes with simplicity, and it's just like that's I always enjoy it. I always enjoy listening to someone come on and speak to a very specific area in their world and just say, you know what, in order to acquire joy, there's actually a really simple formula. It's a really simple formula, and it actually starts with wanting to get it in the first place. That's where you have to start first. Do you lack joy? Yes. Okay. Would you like some joy? Yes. Okay, cool. Now we can do some of this work. Now we can start to get a little bit curious and investigatory around what might actually finding joy in my life look like. And I definitely now want to step into the fear component too, because to your point, like, yeah, we've heard that type of definition around fear before. We talk about stories that we tell ourselves on this show quite a lot. But when you think about your journey now, and you think about this place that I have to assume came with great fear earlier this year, then we're talking something that is still probably quite fresh in your mind, I'd have to assume. Walk us through how you handled some of that fear when you think back to that situation you were handed, when a job is taken away from you, an opportunity with your other business is taken away from you, and now it's just like, okay, there's a rug that's being pulled. Did you have fear? And if you did, what did some of those initial steps look like in terms of overcoming it?
Someone really close to me shared a saying, and that is one of the things that helped me break through the fear, which is money is the easiest thing to make. So a lot of my fear came from money. Yeah. Not having a lot when I grew up. A lack of money was a point of failure. Mm-hmm. And I was just deathly afraid. But then I remembered, money is the easiest thing to make. So you've got to get creative, and you've got to just put one foot in front of the other. Yeah. Another one, action brings clarity. If I don't know what I'm doing, I've got to just move forward. And then thinking about, this is the third and final, what if no one comes? What if no one signs up? What if I blank? Steve, that's one side of the coin.
Yeah.
What if they did? What if they do? What if it is a success? Tapping into joy is more than just putting on music, but it's really looking at the glass half full, or more so, deciding that it's a choice to look at it half empty or half full. I'm going to decide to look at the other side of the coin. I'm going to decide that it is going to work out. Again, broken record here, looking back on your life, what have you accomplished? And I'm not just talking about in your career, I'm talking about in your life in general. What are the things you've gotten through and you've gotten to the other side? What happens if everything's okay? You are resilient. It will all work out. So what? You hit bankruptcy. Do you know how many business owners have hit bankruptcy like 2 and 3 and 4 times before they actually hit it big? I hope nobody, myself included, or you, actually hits bankruptcy ever. But just reminding myself, why am I afraid? What am I afraid of? Okay, well, what if the other side were to be true? Right. And again, money is the easiest thing to make if you just get creative, lean into what you're an expert at. Now I'm really talking to the entrepreneurs that are listening.
Sure.
This was my biggest aha moment. What are you really good at? What could you teach someone with your eyes closed? And figure out a way to teach it to them. Find your audience, find a little beta group, get you some testimonials, and just move forward. That was the biggest thing that I could have realized for myself, is how much more equipped I was than I actually realized. And then just having the momentum and the mindset to just take one step forward, and then another step, and then another step, and never give up, because there is no other option.
Yep. And getting more comfortable playing out those worst case scenarios is such a powerful tool in so many ways, especially when you get to do it with somebody else too, because they can just kind of sit there and you have that wonderful moment where you sort of lay out the worst case scenario, and you look at somebody across from you and they're giving you this look of, so what? So what if that's what comes of this, And I think, to my own story of the 3 years that I've had my business now, I had all those fears when I first started. We have some very similar stories when I talk about my relationship with money growing up and all this kind of thing. And I think for me personally, to sit here now and get to sit with someone like yourself, hearing what it is you've already achieved and that you're on your way to achieving, I get to sit here now in this sort of sense of, it's almost like it's like a reaffirming energy that I get when I hear stories like yours, is that I get to just sit here and go, here's another example. Here's another example. When we just practice so many of these philosophies that we get to, it's why I'm never going to stop doing this podcast, is that I bring on guests that reiterate messages. And some may say that's tedious, but you do it in your own way, with your own story, with your own spin on it. And someone may come on the next episode and provide a very similar insight, maybe around joy, maybe around fear, but they're going to do it in a way that somehow resonates with somebody else for the first time. And that's the beauty of this work, is that if you are just willing to trust it, the results, they work themselves out, entrepreneur or not, wherever you are, whatever path you're walking on. So much of what you're speaking to is, do I want to have joy in my life? Yes or no? Do I want to better handle fear? Yes or no? I think there's a really obvious answer to both those questions. And now we get to sit here, Jen, and say, okay, person who's just said yes to those, what do you want to do about it? What do you want to do about it?
Absolutely. Let's take a really fine-tooth comb to your whole business strategy and see what's going on. Your leadership strategy, see what's going on. I mean, it's the results you're looking for truly are right on the other side of that. And I'm so glad that you did start this podcast. And one thing I'll say is that we as humans, we have to hear things a minimum of, I think it's 8 times, something before it will actually stick. So
it's even worse when you're married to somebody too, is what I've heard. When it's your spouse that's saying it, it's like 16. I don't know what it is about that, but
yeah, my husband will contest to that as well.
Yes.
But So as you think about books, I mean, The Gap and the Gain is a good one. 10X is
Mm,
easier than 2X. I'm reading Nine Figure Mindset right now. Like all of these books, I will read them again and again and again
sure.
because something you mentioned is that the world is always changing,
Hmm.
which means we are always changing, which means if you are not growth ready, then what are you doing?
Right.
You have to continuously be educating yourself so that you can continue to impact others.
Yeah.
And that's different for everybody, but I think it's just an ever evolving, it's the beauty of life that the more that we can grow, the more that others can grow right alongside of us. But we have to sometimes hear those words and hear those sayings and get reminded to pull us back out. Because I mean, I'm not just joyful 24 hours a day.
Exactly.
It's
Right.
something that has, and it took me so long to connect to that word because I was like, no one is going to take me seriously. I am
Hmm.
coming on here talking about joy. Oh my
Right.
gosh. And my husband said, Jen, you have to talk about joy. You have the
Oh.
things that you have gotten through in your life would not have been possible if you didn't lead with joy.
I love that.
And what you just said, it took him about 16 times and I
That's right.
finally listened to him.
It's like the whole story of like me starting my business, and I'll tell the story on stage sometimes, and my wife's like, she's like, yeah, there's more to it than that, and it starts with you coming up with this idea, and me telling you 100 times to go do it, but you don't ever tell that part of the story, you know. But I love that. I love that you got, and again, it's just an added piece of insight here within this conversation is, there's people that know you better than you know yourself in your life, and how much are you leaning on them to acquire this kind of information? Maybe you sit there right now and you've listened to the 40 minutes of this conversation. You're like, I consider myself a pretty joyful person. What would the person that knows me best say? Like, would they agree, or would they challenge me on that? I'm going to challenge you as a coach right now to go ask somebody that question. I think you will benefit from whatever the answer is. Either you will be confirmed that yes, you are in fact a person of joy, or that maybe you have some work to do around that, and that's better information to know than not. So I think just even something as simple as that. I love that example that your husband's so encouraging when it comes to that sort of thing now. But again, just me being the curious guy that I am, as we start to come to the end here, I just want to ask now, when you look forwards and you think about where this business of yours is heading and where your impact and where your work is going, what should we be expecting from Jen moving forwards when we talk about growth? Like what should Steve be getting ready for when it comes to the growth of Jen?
Well, Steve, you can see right here for those that are watching the video, I have
Hmm.
a book
There
on
you
my
go.
shelf. So I am currently writing a book called Live by Design, taking you from leader to legend.
Love
And
it.
yes, it is a book about joy.
Love it.
I am not going to hide that, but it goes over my framework. It has a lot of different stories about people who have used joy as a strategy in their leadership and in their entrepreneurial journey to really push through that fear and get the results they were looking for. So definitely be on the lookout for that in the next year. And then next year, I have a few different retreats that I'm going to be doing, one of which is the Expanders Retreat. So we're going to be really diving deep into your business by the end of next year to prepare you for 2026. So it's going to be a 3-day event where we come together, we do some strategic planning, we break through any fears that you might be having and get really deep on your purpose and what's driving your business. So that's going to be primarily for entrepreneurs. And then throughout the year, going to be continuing with my one-on-one coaching. And I have another Rise and Reflect retreat. This is for female leaders that is going to be happening next summer as well. So I do have an email list. If anyone is interested in following along on the journey, they can all join in, and I send out weekly tips and tricks so we can stay connected.
Love it. Love it. And we're going to have all of that information available to you, the lovely listener, in our show notes so that you can access that. And Jen, you know what? It's been a pleasure for so many reasons. But if I was to really articulate why, it's just been this reinforcement and this reaffirming of like-minded folks trying to do something in a space where it's needed most. And I think I'm hearing that in abundance from you, is just to really have enjoyed the time that we've had speaking here, and to acknowledge that, not to be all cliche, but there is true joy that comes with getting to sit down with you and to learn from you and to listen to you. And it's you talk about authenticity. You can tell all of it is organic and natural, and none of it is forced, and that's always I think the best test of authenticity. So Jen, thank you for the generosity of insights, for the time, and of course, you now have a fan in me and GrowthReady when it comes to just best of luck with everything moving forwards.
Thank you, Steve, and thank you for allowing me to share my story with your audience today. It's been a true joy being with you.
Everyone's sick of that word now. We pushed it. We went too far. Thanks again, Jen. Appreciate it.
Thanks, Steve.
And my thanks again to Jen for joining us on the show. Just want to leave you with this insight before I let you go, is to find your anchors of joy within your day. Folks, this doesn't need to be an all-encompassing overhaul of your day to make it happen. I guarantee you that you can find the 1 minute. That's it. You can find 1 minute in the many minutes that make up your day to experience joy. It could be something as simple as just a moment of reflection. It could just be something as simple as something you get to do with that significant other or that closest friend each and every day. Something that brings a smile to your face, where you're being intentional around making time for joy. Don't tell me that you cannot find 1 minute in your day to experience joy. You can, if it means enough to you. And I'm totally sure that if you find that 1 minute to experience joy, that many more minutes will eventually start to snowball out of that 1 minute as you become more and more intentional around it. So we've said that word a whole bunch on this episode, so you should now have heard the word joy tens of times, if not even hundreds, off the back of this episode, and it should now be ingrained at least in the forefront of your mind just for the rest of today, if not a few more days. I hope that you are diligent about incorporating more joy within your world, in your growth journey, so you can ensure that you're moving towards the sort of things that truly make you happy. So again, thank you to Jen for joining us, and for you, of course, for listening to the episode. I'm so thankful always when you choose to make time to listen to us. And when it comes to anything and everything that we've got coming up on the show, we have tens of episodes. I promise you, tens of episodes either already recorded or already scheduled. So we are not slowing down anytime soon. So make sure you keep coming back to get these deposits of what it means to grow, of how you can make sure that you are readying yourself for anything and everything that comes with growth. And until that moment, don't be selfish and keep these episodes to yourself. Take the time to share it with somebody within your network, and to make sure that you are implementing some of the strategies and some of the insights that come with what our guests provide as well. In the meantime, best of luck with anything and everything you've got going on in your world, folks. I look forward to doing this again with you very soon. Bye for now.
Thank you for tuning in to GrowthReady. If you liked what you heard and are feeling ready to grow, be sure to leave a 5-star rating, subscribe to the show, and share the episode with someone you know is ready to fuel their growth journey today. We love our community, so don't hesitate to reach out to us at podcast@growthready.com. And until next time, we are GrowthReady, and you will be too.